What is pre-construction timeline planning? In this video, I'm going to talk to you all about why it's so important to manage timelines in pre-construction. And let me just give you a little bit of an intro here. You'll have a production plan for your project, and that production plan will communicate the end, when it needs to start so you can maintain a flow, but there will be multiple timelines that have to be managed along the way to make sure that that production plan can actually happen. Things like switchgear, permanent power, internet to the site, long lead material procurement, exteriors, elevators. These are timelines. And I want to remind you of a really neat saying that I heard one time. I actually learned it from Fred Strasser at Oakland Construction. He said, "Don't fall asleep on that timeline." So the art of being able to manage timelines in a way that we queue up and prepare for the actual production work is an art form and one of the main things that we focus on in pre-construction. So what I'm going to do right now is switch over to my computer and show you what those timelines should look like and how you manage them on the short interval. So it's not just the start to the finish. You must be looking at the intermediate points along the way to make sure that those checkpoints are happening on time. So if you're into that, stay with us. Okay everyone, I'm really excited to be with you on the screen recording portion of this video. And so as you can see, I'm in the Jason's Creative Board in Miro. It's basically an online whiteboard, so nothing special. The whiteboard on Microsoft that you can use if you ever want to do similar things. But for me, I was using Miro for this specifically. What I'm going to show you is how we managed our timelines in pre-construction for our construction project at West Fillmore in Buckeye, Arizona. As you can see, over here on the left is you have the general timeline. We have pictures of some of the people who might be responsible, the time on the top, which is pretty clear for you to see. And one of the things that I really want to point out is that we had, and I'll call this the macro phase shaping of what our production plan was going to look like on our project. You can see there's the civil phase right here, the foundations for the clubhouse, then building 1, then building 2, then building 3. So this over here represents construction. And the timelines were the key focus here. We have the building inside of the production plan. We know how that's going to work. And let me just make a point here. This isn't necessarily a criticism, but most general contractors ignore this front part, or an owner or design team will ignore the benefit of having design assist trade partners or general contractor participating as a construction manager in this point in pre-con. So specifically, that's a mistake because we need to manage timelines. And I want to give you an example. So let me just take you through this, and I hope you can see this on your screen. First and foremost, this is all model geometry. You can do this in a CPM software. You can do this in Intact. You can do this in Excel. You can do this in Visio. You can do this in Bluebeam. We chose to do this on Miro because we really love Miro over here at LeanTact and Elevate and Leanbelt. To start, we knew what the production plan was going to look like. We had a macro level TAC plan or a macro phase shaping exercise. And remember, you've got the first building, the second building, the third building, and the fourth building over here. But none of this is going to start unless we manage our timelines. So let me just show you a couple of these and we'll go ahead and get started here. So first of all, the general design process, right? Entitlements, logistics, the estimating process, the trade partner involvement, and then temporary power, and then other types of permits that are required for the project were all plugged in here. I'm going to give you one example of a timeline that really helped us out, and I'm going to use the electrical distribution or permanent power with switchgear as an example up here at the top. Here's what you'll notice. We have the desired release date for switchgear. That means that we would have to have design and the equipment type and all other pertinent information for the electrical load on the building by that time and release the switchgear so that we could have permanent power on time as well. Now, we also did coordinate down here when APS would be ready for that, so those were totally in sync. But basically, this first one right here was when we needed it or wanted it, probably more appropriately, and this would be the last responsible moment, meaning we can't release it any farther past this mid-January, mid-February date, okay? So this was a timeline, and I'll go ahead and use an arrow to communicate this. We knew what the timeline would be from the start to when we actually get switchgear on site and how that would actually feed the building for permanent power when we needed it. And so the gist of this is if we release in between here and here for our electrical switchgear, we will have it on time. And guess what? The APS, meaning the permanent power, will be released on time as well. So this right here is a timeline. So it's not necessarily a production plan. It's simply a timeline with the approval process. Now, a couple things with this. You are going to want to assume your worst case. So even if there is a possibility this could be shorter, you want to assume the worst case so that you're starting on time, so that you know exactly when to trigger the start. Okay. And here's something that Fred Strasser taught me at Oakland Construction. He said, don't fall asleep on these timelines. So we showed this in a visual format so that we knew every critical thing that would have to happen in order for us to execute this production plan and have permanent power. So we drove in a positive way the design team to get us the information. And guess what? We were actually able to release the switchgear on time because we didn't fall asleep on the timeline. So this is just an example. This is just a visual. I didn't pretty this up. This is exactly what we used. And right now, when this video is being recorded, we're in April and we are jamming according to our timeline and ready to go. Now, there's one other thing that I do want to tell you though. This APS timeline is something that we didn't fall asleep on either. There was a change in responsibilities in that scope of work. And we recently found out that there's a bit of an extension to this timeline. And here's something neat that I want to show you as a consequence that I was able to show to the owner the other day once we got the information that said that the actual power from APS is tracking to somewhere basically mid-May to mid-June, which is when the permanent power was on track for at that time. I was able to go back to our original timelines that we're tracking and compare the two and basically say, hey owner, and I have a little text box down here at the bottom that says this is when the original coordinating team told us with a buffer that we would be able to have permanent power. This is where it's tracking right now, and we were able to see that real time. As you can see, the switchgear timelines are right on track to hit our milestone, and we're ready to go. But if anything else pushes, that timeline helps us to understand it and see it right away. So that might not seem remarkable, but the bottom line is, just like if you're trying to find your way somewhere, you've got to have a map that says here's where we're going, and you've got to have a compass to see if we're off track. So if we weren't able to release the switchgear on time, we would have been in trouble. Any step along the way with APS approvals, we would be in trouble, right? The news the other day that we found out about APS, if we don't fix it quickly, we will be in trouble. This is what I call timeline planning. You have your production plan and then your critical timelines, typically long lead to get the project done. Don't fall asleep on those. Make sure you have them in a visual environment and track them appropriately. Here's what I'm going to do. I hope you've gotten a lot out of this video. I know that it's hard to see these images on a YouTube channel, but here I want you to see real examples so that you can take that and come up with something great on your own. So I'll turn this into a blog post, give you these images, and also give you a little checklist in Canva. But here's the bottom line. I want to hear your comments, your feedback, your questions in the comment section below. Remember, what we do here isn't perfect. It's not the only way, but it is a way that you can learn from. I hope you've enjoyed this video. On we go.